Welcome to The Leap with Japa, the podcast that bridges continents and connects stories. Join us as we dive into the vibrant world of international education, explore diverse cultures, and share the extraordinary journeys of students far from home. Whether you're dreaming of studying abroad or already embarking on this adventure through other means, Leap with Japa is your companion in navigating the exciting, challenging, and transformative world of global education. Let's leap into today's episode. Hello and welcome to the second part of the Twitter space that I started last week. This episode outlines the internship process. I give more insights to this episode. I've done something similar in the past, but this was to give a more live overview of the internship process. So I hope you would enjoy this as much as I enjoy doing this. And this Twitter space would run maybe once or twice a month from next month. So I hope you would enjoy this. Also for next month, next week Monday, which is the first Monday in May, I would be dropping an episode with Dr. Casey outlining his experience on when he moved to Canada. So it's going to be a Canadian Leap with Japa experience. So I hope you would join me for that. As alongside that episode, I'm also going to be dropping the full video length episode on the website as well. So you can also watch and listen and use whichever medium you desire. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy this week's episode and have a lovely rest of the week. Okay, so today I want to talk about the issue of internships, and one of the mistakes that I see most people make, most international students, when they get here, is they make the assumption that the internship can wait, and that I don't need to. When I get to that point, I'll cross it. So this is the first thing I would say anyone that is currently an international student that just started their international schooling experience, that the moment you get into the US, your search for internship and full-time work begins. There are so many students in the US. There are so many schools in the US. There are a finite number of job offers. It is paramount and it is very, very important that you immediately start looking for work. So the first advice right out the gate is the day you land in the US is the first day you should start looking for an internship. Now, it doesn't mean that you qualify to start working immediately. You just have to put yourself in that mode of saying, okay, I need to be ready for an internship process. So what does that mean? The first thing, what that means is you need to convert your resume to what the US standard is like. So that's the first thing you need to do. You cannot use the same resume from your home country. For myself, with Nigeria, where you have things like local government areas, your age. So the first thing you need to do is that you need to first understand, what do I need to do to essentially, switch over and become like one of these people here looking for work. So that's the first thing. You need to sorry, let me just send my co-host a request. So you need to essentially figure out, okay, so how do I do that? How do I get my resume done. So they have resume, I think they call them resume analysts, or people that can look into providing a revamp of your resume. So that's the first thing you have to do. And you have to do that in your first month of being here. So right after you've settled down, figured out how you're going to get work. And, I discussed all of that last week in terms of preparing yourself for the F1, preparing yourself for work. So you can take a listen rather to that episode from last week. But right after you've settled, you then you have to switch into job seeking mode, because it's a long haul. It takes a while, so you have to learn the various stages of looking for work. So the first phase is you have to revamp your resume. You have to ensure that it meets the standard. So that's the first thing. And one of the things of revamp is lots of people that I've met, myself included, is you have so many years of experience. You've worked, maybe prior to moving to the US, you spent 10 years outside, you spent 15 years. But now you're a student. One of the hallmarks is you have to make sure that your resume is maybe about max. I'm talking about if you have to. If you don't have to, don't do it. But if you have to, it has to be a max of 2 pages. And 2 pages is pushing it. You have to just make sure it's pretty much very, very concise. Because let me tell you, when you have to send your resume to someone that reviews resume, as a job, you have to be able to capture their attention within the first glance. So that's why 1 page is usually best. They might not ever get to the second page. So that's the first thing. You need to understand that, I have to be able to capture their imagination immediately. So 1 page is always preferred. Doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. Combine that into a single page that would capture an attention. So that's the first thing. That's, for me, I paid someone. You no longer have to pay anybody to do this. There's so many free tools out there. There's, in the age of ChatGPT, you can always drop a resume and then ask it to revamp it for a particular job role. So there's that. So that's the first phase. The second phase is that I would advise always to look for, look for places where you can physically meet people to talk about job offers. So think conferences, job conferences. You have to ensure that after you've done your resume, you need to figure out where you're going to meet people. Now, you can also apply online, but the problem with somewhat applying online sometimes is it's a faceless approach. However, that said, you should dedicate time to always send out your resumes to various organizations. So, Stephen, you have a question? Oh, okay.
Sorry, go on.
No worries. So you need to figure out conferences. What conferences am I going to go to? The job conferences. And this is vital because a conference, people that are coming to a job conference know that they're coming to hire. So there's the intent is already settled if you're going to go to a conference. So that's the first thing you need to do. Look for a conference. So for STEM related conferences, the biggest is the National Society of Black Engineers. And I say this because it is very vital that most people, or if not all, doing a STEM program have to go to NSB once in their lifetime or in their school time. And this also buttresses the point that I made about the best time to actually go into grad school, because it aligns with the NSB conference. So to just give you a bit of context, there are 2 times you can go into grad school. You can go in You can go in August, September, or you can go in January. Now, another rule within the F1 circle is you cannot go on an internship if you haven't spent a session. So you need to have spent a session. So a session can either be 2 semesters or can be 3 quarters. So there is a quarter-based system and there's a semester-based system. 2 semesters make a session. 3 quarters make a session if it's a quarter-based system. So if you haven't spent a whole year in either of the systems, you can't go on internship. Now, if you were to start school in August, September, around August to December would be 1 semester, and then January to April would be another semester. Now, that means you can go for an internship. If you arrive August, September, you can go on internship the following year, summer. Now, the NSB conference, they do their conferences in March of every year. So if you started school in August, September, there's a high probability that you would be able to clinch an internship the following year, summer. However, if you started in January, you cannot go for an internship in that summer if you went for NSB conference that year. So that's another thing you need to consider. It's always best to start school in the fall rather than in the spring. So I wanted to bring that out there. So if you came to school in August, September of a preceding year, you have to go for a NSB conference the following year, March, and that takes planning. So first, you would need to join NSB as a student, as a grad student. Once you join them, the next thing you then need to do is to ensure that you sign up with your new resume in their resume bank, and you upload it and make sure you pay for the conference. So the conference, payment for the conference starts around December of that year or January, and make sure that you take you get a hotel accommodation, you get flights. I know you're a student, but it's very important. So that's one of the things that I would advise, that you what's the word, that you plan appropriately towards NSB. Also, while you're planning towards NSB, you need to be applying online. And one of the things I'll tell anyone right off the bat is, you are not going to get your first offer or your first interview. There's nobody, I don't know, that I know that applied the first time, got an offer, got interviewed, appropriately, got an offer, and that was it. So you cannot expect that you have to just apply once and get an internship. There are various phases of the job search. The first phase of the job search is, one, you are not going to hear back from anybody. That's the first phase. That phase usually discourages people, thinking that I shouldn't be applying. No, I think you should be doing easily 30, 40, 50 applications a day, because there are lots of companies. So that's the first phase. You don't hear back from anybody. The second phase is that you start hearing back from people, but what you're hearing back from them is rejections. Oh, we're sorry that we didn't hear. Sorry, you don't meet the requirement. It's also discouraging, because you've put in, maybe at this time, easily 200-300 applications, and now you're getting rejections and rejections and rejections. So that's the second phase of the job search. Third phase of the job search is, you're going to hear back from some people who want to call you and speak to you. So a recruiter will call you and say, will reply you and say, hey, I love your resume. Would it be possible that you set up a time so that we can talk? So you're going to get a bunch of those calls saying, hey, we love your resume and everything. Some of them would reject you once they probably find out you're an international student, and they don't want to have anything to do with them. Most companies would want to speak to you. So so that's the next phase. So the first phase is the phase where you don't hear anything. The next phase is when you start hearing back rejections. The third phase is when the recruiter actually wants to talk to you And hey, you start talking to them about what they want and everything. And after you get through that phase, the next phase after that would be interviews, where they would then schedule interviews for you. So most of all I'm saying right now is coming from a STEM perspective. I'm sure it works across all fields. So speaking of for STEM, if it's a tech-related job, what typically happens is that you have to go through multiple rounds of interview. So that's the next phase of the job search. The next phase of the job search would be, you made it through the recruiter screening. If you made it through the recruiter screening, then you go into the main first round of the interview. So another rejection that you would face is probably you don't pass the recruiter screening. And that can be a disappointment as well. Once you get through the recruitment screening, then you get into the first rounds of interview. So you can see the sequence of phases involves multiple interviews. Involves multiple applications. If you do not make as many applications as possible, you might end up being stuck in one gate of this, various phases. So you have to make sure you consistently apply so that you can get as much interviewing experience as possible. Because there's a technique and there's a principle behind interviewing that you only learn by going through interviewing. So there's no one at least in the tech sector that went through it only one time. You have to go through multiple times so that you can get used to how the sequence works. So once you get through to the next phase of doing interview, what you would then start experiencing is rejections at different rounds. So the first time you would get to the first round, you might get rejected, and then you get better at interviewing, and then you're able to push to the second round. And then the next phase you now start going through is you've gone through multiple rounds for different companies that you now start getting multiple offers. So the next phase will now be the confusion phase of which offer am I supposed to take. Now you would notice that all of this sequence, you have to still go through it while you are in school, and you have to do this while you're still trying to get good grades. So that's the amount of work that is involved. If you delay this stage, if you delay this process, you go through your classwork and say, I'm going to wait to get an internship, you won't have time to have gone through all these phases. You won't have enough time to have practiced and failed before you would do your internship, before you would do an actual interview. By that time, panic sets in and you might miss the window of opportunity to go on an internship. So that's one of the reasons why I felt this discussion was warranted for a single episode of this whole series, that you have to actively plan to get this internship. It doesn't fall from the sky. You have to go out and seek this internship. Because if you do not do that, what will happen is after you finish your program, it'll be very difficult to put in American experience on your resume, which is another kettle of fish, which is something I'm going to discuss way down. Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot get a full-time job after your program if you don't do an internship. It just means that you would have to learn to go through this series of back and forth, prior to graduation, and panic can set in. Moving on to the issue of the work authorization. I don't know if anyone has any questions. If you have any questions, you can pause. I'll pause right now so you can ask. You can request them.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Stephen, I don't know if you have any pointers or any questions yourself.
I have none yet. I'm still listening to you.
Okay. Right. So prior to going on an internship, you need to also understand the CPT process. Now, the CPT is the Curriculum Practical Training. It's a tool that international students typically use to go on internship. A CPT duration is based on the duration of the internship. Typically, the internship process is about 3 months. I typically advise you do 3 months and not 6 months. And the reason is, well, I'll tell you the reason when I'm done discussing how to get this. Now, to get the CPT, you need to understand that it's at the discretion of the designated school official. You have to kind of justify why you need the CPT, because your program needs to outline that going on an internship is part of your graduate experience. So a CPT is not automatic. People probably tend to think it is, but it's not automatic. So what I would advise is you need to, be friends with the designated school official, so you can ask them. It's like, okay, what is the process that I need to go through to get a CPT authorized from the DSO? Because your CPT has to be authorized. It's not something that is automatic. So one of the things you have to do, first of all, is ask your graduate program coordinator to say, hey, if I get an internship, what do I have to do? So the first thing is they have to kind of give you a write-off to say, yes, you can go on CPT. And CPT is typically to the cost to the school. Sorry, there's no cost. There is a cost associated with going on CPT. And that is, you usually take a class. You have to register for a class in the summer, which is typically a CPT class. So that's the first thing. So you need to find out if the program has that elective that you can register for. So that's the first thing you have to figure out. Once you figure that out, you then need to find out from the program if CPT, going an internship, is part of your academic program. Meaning, do you have to go, or is it obligatory? Is it mandatory, or is it optional? Now, the reason why I say that is because when, back in grad school, we had to get a letter explicitly from the department saying, yes, this person is allowed to go on CPT. So don't always assume it's automatic. Sometimes it's not. So don't going looking for an internship, getting an internship, and then the school saying, well, I'm sorry, you cannot go because, it's not allowed. It's not part of your program. It's not mandatory. And then that's another. So one thing I've noticed is most people feel that they are, it's their right to go on CPT. No, it's, if the law doesn't state, if the law of the school and the rules of the school doesn't state that, you cannot change that. You shouldn't feel a sense of entitlement to it. So you have to make sure you politically wiggle your way around that to make sure that it's all in the clear. It is very possible that it is in the clear, but sometimes the DSO might just want to prove very difficult. So that's one thing about the CPT. So for the CPT, once you get your offer letter, you will take the offer letter to your graduate program, who will then say, okay, fine, authorization from the DSO. The DSO then prints you a new I-20 with the timelines, which is, if it's a 3 months internship, the I-20 will show the duration of those times. You cannot go beyond the allotted time that has been set up. So you can't go beyond 3 months or 6 months. So why do I say don't go beyond 3 months? It's because if you were to do a 6-month internship, remember your original intention is to come study and graduate. One of the things that you would find out is you would get so used to working in an industry after 6 months that you might not want to go back to school because you're all settled, you're making very good money, you might start doubting what is the point of even going back. But if you do 3 months, you'll be very, very encouraged to quickly go finish whatever program you're doing so that you can come back for full time. So that's one reason why I personally typically advise just do 3 months and just go back to school and get it over with. And, within a short period, you'll be done. Another thing that I want to state is while you're on internship, remember I told you once you start your program, just start thinking about internship. Once you start your internship, start thinking about full-time. Do everything in your power to make sure that you sit down with the manager, management, whoever it is, and fight till the end to make sure you get a full-time return offer. I say this because it will reduce the amount of stress on you before you graduate. If you do not do it, then you would have to start all this process again for getting the internship. So make sure you push as much as you can to ask your manager, do you have a headcount? Do you have openings? Are you guys projecting you would have openings? If he doesn't have openings, can he connect you to another team that's going to have openings? So you can start working, but I would say walking the floor, making sure that you can figure out, how to quickly, get full-time, because this is not it's not play. You're not there on an excursion. This is real life. If you do not fight for that, there are lots of other students that are going to fight for it. But they have limited headcounts. They have limited budgets. So you need to know, while you're collecting the big bucks, you need to know that, okay, I need this big bucks to continue after I graduate. So how do I sign myself up? Right. So I'll pause now. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help. Any questions? Steven, any questions?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think my question will just be that. So, for example, you have the internship offer, and okay, you have your internship offer, and
Yes.
it's maybe the program is designed for the internship program is for 6 months.
Okay.
And you advise that 3 months is actually good. So are you still going to be advising, for someone studying a PhD, to still go for 3 months? Given that they have more time to spend in school compared to people doing masters.
Okay.
Yeah, and just...
Okay, good question. So if you are in a PhD program and you get a 6 months internship offer, and go for it. You still have time. Like you said, you still have time in the program. So you might as well go and come back. But one thing you should be aware of, once you go for 6 months, your PhD advisor will look at you with a side eye and say, come, are you here to actually finish this PhD, or you want to just go to industry? It would be nice if you just took chunks of 3 months, because for a PhD program, the ultimate aim is to try and finish it within the allotted time as quickly as possible. Also, another thing you can do, if you're really just tired of the whole PhD, you can just grab a full-time and just graduate the master's and go. There was I don't know if you've listened to my first interview that I did with Dr. David Adamo. It's available as a podcast and as a YouTube. So if you go to leapwithjapa.io and you go to the video section, so Leap with Japa is LEAP with JAPA.io. There's a video section where I did an interview with him, and this is what he said. He said, if your interest is with software engineering, if it's in software engineering, you don't need a PhD. If you want to be a software engineer, you don't need a PhD. He has a PhD, by the way. But he went through this motion of, hey, wait a minute, I'm doing all this work. Now, the PhD equips you to be a better software engineer, no doubt. But if you keep going on 6 months internship on the PhD program, do you really, really want the PhD? Because you want to finish it. And, so if your aim is to get that PhD, yeah, go for the 3 months internship when the offer arises, and then go back. So those are the two ends of the tail. Because you also want to avoid, and I know this, that PhD advisors like you to spend the summer with them. Because it's research and it's free labor for them. So if you keep running off to the industry to to work, they're gonna feel like, what is this guy doing? He doesn't really want this PhD. So you have to balance it, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not gonna say don't take it. But I'm gonna say you have to balance it and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll do 3 months now, maybe I'll do 6 months another time. But if you every summer are off for every 6 months, the PhD advisor is just gonna think you're not serious. So so that's my take. I hope that answers your question, Stephen.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Sure, it does.
Any other question? You can always request the mic if you want to ask a question. Or I can simply make everyone, and then you can mute your mic and then you can come up and then you can talk. So I'm just going to invite everyone that I see here up on stage, and then you can choose not to not to speak, but if you do have a question, you can ask. Anyways, so this is in the final 10 minutes of this. So when you are on your internship, what do you do? So typically what happens is that when you're on an internship, you're given a task. And it depends on the company. You're given a task, and then you have a mentor, you have a manager. Some other places, your mentor and your manager are the same persons. One of the things I would say immediately is to make sure that you are able to have weekly meetings with your manager/mentor. Make sure that you have deliverables that you've achieved for the week or set out. Also make sure that you are, within the team, you have a very good dynamic with your team members, because they're watching all of this. So they're watching interaction between you and everybody else. He or she is watching the interaction between you and themselves. And what they want to do is to find out if you fit. So apart, your technical skills got you there. So they are not trying to figure out if you know stuff. One, you're an intern. Two, you must know something technical to get you there. So the only thing they're trying to assess is your interpersonal relationship. So you can't be arrogant. You have to be a team player. So you have to ensure that you always, play nice with everybody. From a software engineering perspective, working in teams, you have to, if you're using any code repository, you have to be able to know, even if you don't know how to, use Git and things like that, but you have to be able to work collaboratively. So you have to learn how to do that, because that's what you're going to be coming back to full time if you were interested in coming back to that. Also, it is very possible you get there and you don't like the place. So, do everything you can to make sure you get something else, so it's not every company that you would get into and you like. But I'm sure someone as a tech person, if you got into a place, say Microsoft, I don't think you would hate it. You just want to stay there, and any other company. So, which is why it's always paramount for you to push for the company that you want to end up with, to get an internship and push for the company you want to end up with. So, I don't know if you have any questions. This is traditionally what I had for today. Next week, I'm hoping to cover something else. I'll release that topic. Most likely would be around graduation, and then the H1B process, to explain how that process works. Again, remember, this is supposed to give you like an overview, like a bird's eye view from F1 to green card. So I'm going to cover everything in between and anything afterwards. I run a podcast that outlines a lot of these things. It's Leap with Japa on Apple, Spotify. Also, I have a website, leapwithjapa.io, that essentially gives you all the episodes I've covered till now. We're going to be launching we've launched a video episode, so there'll be more video and audio podcasts. Next month's interview. So every month I drop an interview series with someone that I've interviewed. For this month, it was with an Indian international student who's currently working as a machinist, he's a mechanical engineer. Last month it was Dr. Adamo, whose interview is really pretty expository for people that are doing PhDs, and it's up both on YouTube and on my website. So if you go to www.leapwithjapa.io, you would see all the podcast interviews, and there's a video section where you'd see the video interview. You can also listen to the podcast on both Apple and Spotify. If you just type Leap with Japa in there, you would see all the episodes that have been covered till date. For next month, which is May, what I intend to do is to release a video podcast with one that I did with Dr. Casey. He's a mentor of mine that we went to. He was 2 years ahead of me in Minna in undergrad. He's currently in Canada, so it's going to be a series, the first of many, hopefully, with the Canadian experience, how he moved to Canada, and how he, looked for work and things like that. So that is very vital for people that are considering Canada. So I'm not just restricted to America. So I also want to learn about other places. So Canada is the closest to us. So that episode drops the first Monday of May, I believe. So I think, let me see, the May calendar, the first Monday is the 6th of May. So there's going to be one episode this Monday. I believe this Monday is the last Monday of the month. Can't remember. But there's going to be an episode this Monday, and there's going to be another episode next Monday. So next Monday is the first Monday in May, where I'm going to drop Dr. Casey's video and audio. Promises to be very nice. He talked about how he moved during COVID. So for anybody that that is considering a Canadian move, this will be very helpful for them to find out how he did it, because he told me then he was doing job interviews while he was in isolation based on COVID. So it's a very good, and he works for the government, and he got a job within days of landing in Canada. So there was a strategy that he used that he shares in that video and audio that will drop on the first Monday in May. So I hope you would, join me in that, and, join me in pushing that information out to people that would need that, because most people typically say, oh, I'm doing stuff about America, what about other places? Well, this would be the first episode that is outside of the American experience. So I'm excited to share that when that time comes. I don't know if you have any questions. I don't want to keep anyone beyond 45 minutes. Do you have any questions, Sheriff Stephen?
Yeah, I think it was really good, and I don't have any question, but I was just thinking about comments. So I was just thinking if you could possibly, I don't know, so that people can have more time to, when people get information, they also want to put it into practice.
Yes.
So I think we could just be doing maybe every 2 weeks, so people have more time, and you get feedback from people, see how they're faring. If they have any problem, they can get back to you again and give their input, and we'll see how we can help them solve the problem. Just thinking.
Also, what I was thinking just right now is the next one might be the Saturday after the Canadian one launches, so I can bring in Dr. Casey probably.
Oh,
that's probably what I'm gonna do. That I'm gonna release one of the episodes, and I'm gonna bring the person onto the space to talk about his episode, and to see if that way it gives more time to plan, I guess. Again, this is like a learning process for myself, so there will be hits or misses. So, but you're right. First of all, was to reduce the amount of time that was spent on the space, and secondly would be to also space out the series. So, thank you. The next one will probably be after I launch the episode with Dr. Casey, so that I can bring him on, and then people that have listened to the episode or people that are yet to listen to the episode will go listen after he speaks, or would come and ask him questions. So that way I can organize that. I can also organize one with Dr. Adamo, whose episode is already out there. So I can always try and find out what his schedule is like and drag him in as well. So.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. If no one else has any question, thank you for joining. I know it was probably on short notice that you joined. I would provide more and more insights. I give more time rather for next one. But the next one will probably be mid-May, so give enough time so that people can plan towards it. But yeah, so please don't forget to subscribe. If you go onto the website leapwithjapa.io, there's a subscription. I send out information every Friday and every Monday, so that you can get up to speed with what's going on within my circle and probably within other people's circle. But in the interest of time and the interest of not having anything else to say, if no one else has any questions, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Leap with Japa. I hope it brought you valuable insights and stories that resonate with your journey. If you have any thoughts to share, questions, or want to send a voice note with your feedback, please visit our website at leapwithjapa.io. You will find a contact from there. I would love to hear from you and feature your voice in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform, some of which are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Player FM. Your subscriptions and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners, and I truly appreciate each one of them. Also, check out our merch store on leapwithjapa.io website for some cool t-shirts and hoodies, perfect for showing your support for the show. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll dive even deeper into the experiences and challenges of international education and careers. Until then, keep leaping forward, and thanks again for being part of the Leap with Japa community.